So if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself a little.
Joel Floyd Koonce.
Okay, and can you tell me the story of how the Koonce family came to Moss Bluff?
I can. Was told to me many times by my grandmother, Thelma. No middle name. Thelma Koonce. The story goes like this. Jasper, her great-great-grandfather, was living in California. And they wanted to leave California. I don't know the reason why they wanted to leave California, but they did. But they had twins. They had two children. They couldn't decide where they wanted to go. They either wanted to go to Texas or to Tennessee. So, Koonces, being who they are, decided to name one child Texas and one child Tennessee. And said, as my grandmother told me, whichever one walked first would be where they went. Texas walked first. So, off they went and settled in Texas, in a little town that, as my grandmother claimed to her dying day, was named after Jasper, Texas. From there, how we made it officially into this area, I know that some Koonces made it to Orange, Texas, and eventually made it to the Moss Bluff area, one of two families that settled here first. Koonces being one and Terrios being another. Even now, actually, my grandfather had 9 brothers, all brothers. This area, when they were younger, was part of the Great Depression. So the 9 brothers would very often go rabbit hunting. Being the Great Depression, they didn't have guns. So what they would do is form a large circle in the woods until one of them scared up a rabbit. Then they would chase the rabbit toward the other brothers, ever making the circle smaller and smaller and smaller until they could catch a rabbit. One of the brothers, if not actually the father, I believe, was named John Koonce. And here in Moss Bluff, there are 2 roads that carry the name of Koonce. There is Koonce Road, which is actually not too far from where we are now, which is where the general store was. And my grandfather told me that the reason they survived the Great Depression, one of the main reasons, was because the Koonce owned the general store. As I understand it, the reason the road was named Koonce Road is because there were a lot of Koonces living there, and the Koonce general store was on that road. Also, a little bit north of here, there is a J. Koonce Road, which when I was growing up, I told everyone was my road because my name is Joel. It's Joel Koonce Road. It's not. It's actually John Koonce. But Koonces apparently went from California to Jasper, Texas. My grandmother also says if you go to the library in Jasper, Texas, there is a picture of Jasper Koonce hanging in that library. Never been, mainly because I'm afraid it's not there and I don't want to call my grandmother a liar. So Jasper to Orange to here, to where my grandfather Sam worked for Sun Oil Company, which used to be actually right in this area back in the late 50s, early 60s, until he retired. And that, to the best of my knowledge, is a story of how the Koonces went from California to Moss Bluff, Louisiana.
Wonderful. What happened whenever Tennessee and Texas and their family moved to Jasper?
As I understand it, Tennessee moved away. I don't know where. I've only got one story having to do with that. Tennessee moved away. Texas stayed there and settled and had a family, but apparently they were so close as far as identical twins go for their entire lives. They were so close that one day Tennessee came back to visit his family. And according to my aunt, he went around town saying that he was looking for his brother Texas. And everyone thought that he was off his nut, that he was Texas. And they were getting ready, to quote my aunt, to run him out of town on a rail until Texas appeared and they realized that he was indeed a twin brother.
Wow. Why have the Koonces stayed in Moss Bluff for so long?
Well, we did not. We actually moved away to New Orleans for a time. As far as, I don't know, why does anyone stay anywhere? You go where the opportunity is. You go where you can pick the lowest hanging fruit, is my belief. And Koonces have always seemed to prosper here. Why does anyone prosper anywhere?
That's a good point. Can you think of any Koonce stories that really show how we have been prosperous here?
You know what? Yeah, no, but I do have a story of why my particular line chose to stay here about my father. My father was a draftsman by trade. And upon graduation, I believe he went to a trade school to become a draftsman. He got a job in Houston, Texas. I was not born yet. Packed up, sold his house, or put his house on the market actually, and went to work in Houston. This would have been circa 19, if I wasn't born yet, it would be late 60s, 67, 68. Moved into an apartment, went to work, stayed the full time, worked for 8 hours. Came home to his wife and 2 children at the time. And the way my mother tells it, my father said, "Linda, we're going home. These people are crazy. I'm up in a big building, and when the wind blows, I can feel it move." So the very next day, they came back to Moss Bluff. Father was not cut out for the big city. But it was a different time. My father grew up watching westerns and had a horse, riding horses. Children of today, I think, are a lot more mobile. But as far as my father goes, if you live in an area for a very long time and you watch it change. When I was a child, I was convinced my grandfather knew everyone in Moss Bluff. I had no doubt in my mind. Why? Because he waved at everyone and they waved back. Small town mentality. But to have the luxury of seeing a town change from your childhood to your nearing midlife crisis. You don't see dirt roads around here anymore. When I was a child, you didn't have to travel too very far to find roads that didn't have asphalt. Now, the only one I can think of is Deer Run as you approach Raglan. Even the road to the Boy Scout camp is now paved. My father could remember seeing horses and carriages. My father remembered the one-lane bridge and the, what do you call them? Cars on a boat, they go across the water. What do you call those things?
Houseboats?
No, they transport cars.
Ferries.
Ferries in Westlake. There's a ferry in Westlake. I could take you to where that boat landing is there. The one-lane bridge that actually goes, would be just west of where the Moss Bluff Bridge is now. I remember when this town had one grocery store, and that was Sonny's Supermarket. Now you've got Market Basket and Walmart, and now you've got Rouse's farther down. I don't know. To watch a town change and go from when I was growing up, there was exactly one stoplight, and there was one police officer who patrolled Moss Bluff named Otis Long. I'll never forget one day my brother taking me home from school, an old beater truck he had, driving by, and Otis had somebody pulled over on the side of the road. And for no reason at all, my brother rolls down his window and screams out of his truck, "Give him a ticket, Otis!" And then just kept right on going. I never understood why he did that, but at that point, you know, it really didn't matter because chances were in a town of the size it was, my brother knew the police officer knew my brother, and my brother probably knew the guy that had been pulled over, and everybody just had a big laugh about it. You do that kind of thing nowadays, there's 2 or 3 police cars there, and one of them's probably going to track you down. Small town to Moss Bluff being what it is now, it's been quite a change to watch.
Absolutely.